This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast, episode number 140. Today, we're talking September financials, 2023, September 2023. I feel like this is important. You have your dollars and cents. I have my, let's make sure we get the year right. I'm your host, Craig. Over there, he's Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Craig. How are you?
I'm all right.
Hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm hanging in. We're recording this on Halloween. That's how late we're getting with our financials now. Like last day of the month, recording this on Halloween. So while it's not my all-time favorite holiday, I do love how happy my kids get with Halloween. So I'm doing all right.
Good.
They love dressing up. All right, Chris, before we do numbers and stories and all that stuff, I do need to remind everybody to go to haulinassetsllc.com, which I am currently repping on my t-shirt. HaulinAssetsLLC.com, past show notes, you can leave comments, all that stuff. So that's the show page. But Chris is over there repping Motor Carrier HQ on his shirt. Let's go to motorcarrierhq.com. That's the tools, the tips, the people that can help you make the transition from driver to owner, if you so choose. We're going to talk about that phrase there in just a few moments here, I think. Anyway, and merch. Chris, merch.
Get merch, yeah. Buy a t-shirt.
Yep.
You look just like Craig.
Motorcarrierhq.com. That's where you go to look like Craig. I think we just cut our traffic in half.
No, we're not going to sell anything.
That's right. All right. So, Chris, as we get started with this episode, you wanted to talk about Trudy.
Yeah.
One of our drivers for Haulin Assets. I say our very generously to myself.
Well, you are somewhat related. I had a phone conversation with her a little while back, and we've got a handful of drivers that listen to the podcast. She's one of them, listens to it religiously, and we're having a conversation about that. And it was really cool for me because she started talking about how listening to the podcast, that even though for her, she has no desire to be an owner operator. That's not what she wants in life. She really enjoys listening to the podcast because she feels like she can, it opens the book, right? It's like taking apart the toaster and seeing how everything works.
Right.
And she said that she feels like it makes her a better driver because she can kind of see like why we make some of the decisions we make and why we do some of the things that we do. And that really, it meant a lot to me that she would take the time to listen to the podcast, use it as an educational experience for her, and then, try to be a better driver for the company. And that's, like, I don't care what you do in life. If you're constantly trying to improve and get better at what you do, you're going to find some success. And so, good on you, Trudy, and glad to have you as a driver. She's awesome, and appreciate it that she listens and learns.
Excellent shout out. And I love, and we come back to this idea every once in a while, but obviously this is a show about starting your own trucking company, growing your own trucking company. And so, that's kind of who we're speaking to primarily. But we do bring up the idea, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, that if you so choose, this path is not for everybody, and that's fine, because companies are going to need employee drivers. And some people just, like Chris, you'll notice I did not run out in the last 4.5 years and start my own trucking company, no matter how much I've loved doing the show. It's not everybody's built for it. So.
Like everything in life, owner operator, there's pros and cons to it, and it's right for some people, not for others. Same thing with employee driver. Mm-hmm. It's right for some people and not for others. And so you got to have both. Both are important. And
cool. Well, Chris, the other update that I wanted to get before we go on to the September numbers would be the dispatching that you talked about last time. You guys are beginning the process of bringing dispatching in-house. You talked about doing 1 or 2 trucks a month, as I recall.
I've got 2 that I've been dispatching for about 3 weeks now. I'm adding 2 more around the middle of November, and it's been going well. I'm learning a lot. It's like kind of like when I jumped into the truck, right? When I started driving, I'd never driven before. I'd been in the industry for a long time. And you kind of feel like you've got a pretty good hang and handle on everything. But once you actually start doing it, you realize there's so many things that you you don't know what you don't know. And it's kind of that way with dispatching.
Yeah.
I feel like in a lot of like, I make up a lot of my inexperience and my tenacity. And like, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning, looking for loads, contacting brokers or shippers that we've worked with in the past in certain areas when I've got a truck there. And so I feel like overall I've done a pretty good job. There's definitely some room for improvement. I think it's just going to kind of keep getting better and better.
Hearing you say that, it's a bit like when somebody's trying to play baseball better. And so that you'll get played highlights from, Derek Jeter or Big Papi or something. And somebody will just say, play like that. Play like that guy.
Easy.
And so you're like, oh yeah, no, all you have to do is get up at 5 a.m., work, 14-hour days, harder than everybody else. And hey, success is all yours. Well, Chris, that hurts me because I'm not as good a person as you. So no, it's good to hear it's going pretty well though. So How many trucks now?
I've still just got the first two. I've got about 2 more weeks and I'll add 2 more, get up to 4. And I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Okay. Well, we'll continue to get updates on that as we go. Should we talk numbers now?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So you've given me a little heads up, Chris, that pretty soon we're going to be real happy. But that day is not today.
It's not today.
Is that right? Is that fair?
Like you mentioned, it's Halloween, the last day of October. So what's going to happen in October?
Scary numbers?
Well, no, not really. October numbers aren't scary.
I guess I just meant the ones we're talking about.
The ones we're talking about today, yeah, very Halloween appropriate. But, October is mostly done. So revenue-wise, especially, I've got a pretty dang good idea what revenue is going to look like for October. And we'll just say I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm excited for October. It's going to be I think it's going to be a pretty fun financials episode.
I needed to bring that up because I'm looking for rays of light and hope during these financials episodes. It's been a rough go this summer.
It would be really hard to go through today's numbers without feeling like there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
So let's just kind of dive right in to the dumpster fire that was September.
Okay, there were a few jokes I could have gone on when you said dump, and I just, I thought, I'll leave it alone. This is a family show, Chris. It's a family show.
Most of the time. I mean, we've had a few times where it's kind of crossed the line maybe a little bit.
All right, give me the bad news about September. Let's talk about total miles run on how many trucks.
So essentially we had all but 1 truck running in October. It was really kind of more like half a truck. So we essentially had 10 trucks running full bore. 103,808 miles.
Okay.
So that's not our worst. That's about what we've done the last couple of months. In fact, it's a little more mileage this month than it was last month.
Okay.
October, I pulled the numbers for our mileage so far through maybe half the day yesterday in October.
You're going to spoil it.
We're going to smash October's number in miles.
Okay.
Or September's. We're going to make a new record. We'll put it that way. We already have.
Whoa.
I'm not going to tell what it is, but yeah.
Okay, good. You know what? Because you've been so good in past episodes about the professional tease. I want to christen you Mr. Burlesque because you're so good at teasing, right? I'm glad you're not giving it away. All right, so total miles run, call it 104.
Yeah.
If we're rounding up, 104,000 miles on
one truck sitting, which last month I think it was more like, when I say last month, August was more like 2. So speaking of that, do you know who Flight of the Conchords are?
Chris, I am a man of a certain age.
I was going to say,
I know.
I would be surprised if you don't. So it reminded me of the Business Time song.
It's business time.
It's business time. If you haven't listened to that, I should put a link in it because it's hilarious. Should. It's one of my favorite songs. 2 minutes in heaven is better than 1 minute in heaven. Yeah.
With me, you only need 2 minutes because I'm so intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, 1 truck sitting is definitely better than 2 trucks sitting.
Okay. All right. Well, nice silver lining.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Well done, Chris. All right. Deadhead miles. Out of those 104, out of the 104,000, where are we at?
7,021 miles. That's
a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's 6.8%. So it's not a ton. It's not terrible, but yeah, it's not great either.
Yeah, because we're shooting for about 5.
5 would be nice. You get above 10%, and then it starts to get
scary.
Bad. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So about 7% deadhead miles then. Total revenue comes to what?
$198,099.60. So for the number of miles that we ran, that's obviously not good. The all-in rate per mile was $1.91. Again,
still
really
sub
bad.
two.
We can't make money at that. I mean, when you're getting an all-in rate at under $2 a mile, we're losing money.
Yeah, when you were a solo show, just you out on the road, you could take a rate like that and say, I can find a way to make these numbers work, especially in a better economy than we have right now. But when you're doing 11 trucks and it grows the expenses, right? Suddenly you're paying for a lot of administrative help and whatnot that you don't have to do with one truck. And so a rate like that just ain't going to cut it. Right.
The spot market right now is it's terrible. And that's really where that comes from. Because if you look at some of the other trends that we've got going on, our direct shipper stuff is getting better and better. If you look at August, which is generally a seasonally slow month for our direct shippers that we work with, mostly in produce, we only did 4 out of 68 loads were with our direct shippers. So that's only 6% of our loads, not really that great. September, 14 of our 68 loads, or 21%, was with our direct shippers. And that's 67% of our outbound loads. So most of our direct shipper loads originate from Utah or Southern Idaho. So in September, we were at 67%. Since we're the last day of October, I've kind of already pulled and looked at these numbers. October's even better. So in October, we did 22 of our 89 loads, or 25% of our loads were with direct shippers.
Okay.
All but 2 of our outbound loads, or 92% of our outbound loads were direct shipper.
Hey, that's pretty
good. So that's
good.
really good. Yeah. So I feel like we could not have done much better with our direct shipper loads.
Yeah.
And with that being said, the other 2 outbound loads that we had coming out of Utah, Idaho were actually like pretty good paying loads. So it wasn't that big of a deal.
Okay. Well, happy fall, everybody. Yay for the harvest.
And so you're going to see in October's numbers, the benefits of seeing more direct shipper stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's get to our final numbers then for September. You mentioned the rate per mile, $1.91, the total revenue, $198,000. But what does that give us as far as, let's just say, a loss this month?
It's going to be, it's a big loss, a record. $49,554.61.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah. And obviously we can't sustain that forever. With that being said, I don't think we're going to need to. October's looking better. I think we're going to probably have a pretty good October, November, December this year. January and February, that are usually the worst months, we'll probably struggle again. And just crossing our fingers that, by the middle of next year, we start to see more consistent good things. So with that being said, we haven't really talked much about this because we haven't really had much opportunity to talk about this. So that $49,000 loss is what you would call our net operating loss. But our actual loss was actually less than that, because in September, we finally sold truck number 1.
Oh, the Jolly Green Giant.
The Jolly Green Giant, yeah. So we got to realize some of the proceeds from that sell hit our bottom line in what you would call other income. It was from the sale of a fixed asset is kind of how we've got it categorized. And basically $23,000 of what we sold that truck for essentially hits our profit, which was the total sell of the truck, which I can't remember off the top of my head, was around $29,000. It was just shy of $30,000, 29 something, minus what was left that we hadn't depreciated yet. So that total amounts the $23,001. So our actual true loss was slightly more palatable at $26,558.11.
Is that all?
That's it.
Is that all, Chris?
Only a year's worth of mortgages on a normal house.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Which reminds me of how blessed I am to have bought my house before interest rates went crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so 49,500, but call it 26.5. that's a brutal number. Even if we take that latter number, that's a brutal number. Like you said, it's unsustainable. So let's not wallow, Chris. Let's move on to some details from the P&L and other the profit and loss statement and other things that we may want to weave into this narrative of what happened in September. So yeah, what highlights do you want to talk about from the profit and loss statement?
So when you have a loss that big, there's obviously going to be a lot of detail that kind of cause that to happen. And so there's a fair amount of things that we can pull out of this. One, we had $3,500 in damages. Most of it was from truck 5, and these are actually damages that occurred over a year ago. That it's one of those. It was more cosmetic, and we just
you didn't have to take care of it right away. Didn't have to take care of it,
and so then you ask, well, why are you taking care of it in a really bad month? One, we didn't really know it was going to be that bad of a month. Two, it's mainly because the driver that had driven that truck left us in August, and so it was the right time to kind of make those repairs
while the truck was sitting for a bit.
Yeah,
waiting for a new driver.
Yep, and not all the repairs have been made yet, but we've got some parts on order and some things that still have to happen to it. But we've paid for most of the repair at this point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So $3,500 in damages. Yikes. Ouch. Payroll is always what it's like. Fuel and payroll. Those are your big expenses, right?
They are. And if you remember, we have this happen. I mean, obviously this happens every once in a while. So we pay every Friday is when we run payroll. And so obviously there's going to be a 5th payroll every once in a while. And this month had a 5th payroll. And so, that makes up about $15,000-$20,000 of that difference is there's an extra payroll.
So with that sort of thing, it sounds like, hey, it's just an accident of timing. It's almost like an accounting trick or something. It's not a trick, but you get what I'm saying, where it's just an accounting detail where, as a business owner, do you feel like that's the best setup for you? Maybe this is a whole episode, how to pay your people, right? But just really quickly, do you like doing it weekly, or do you feel like it's great for the drivers, but it would be better for you if you did twice a month or something?
It is great for the drivers. It's not so great for the company, but that's kind of what the industry standard is in trucking. And so you kind of have to. All of my other businesses pay either twice a month or every other Friday.
Right.
So I don't particularly love it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You kind of have to do it. It's kind of interesting if you want to see as companies grow larger and you've got the staff to do this, they'll actually calculate their payroll essentially on a daily basis. And so you don't have that fluctuation where you've got the cash that comes out on a Friday, and it kind of creates that, some months it's going to be higher than others because of just the timing of things. But when you get bigger and you kind of do it on a daily basis, that timing factor goes away. But it's pretty cumbersome to calculate that. And so you usually don't see companies do that until they get a pretty decent size.
Right. Okay. All right. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about as far as expenses go is you've talked every time you bring on a new truck about the new expenses that you take on with that truck, right? Just onboarding that truck is expensive. But you just talked about a driver for truck 5 left in August. You had to bring somebody else on. So I assume that happened in September. What does that do? Like, how much does it cost to bring on a new driver for a truck?
Well, that's interesting. So we'll look at two things there. One, there's the hiring cost of it. And we usually, when we hire a new driver, we advertise for about a month, and that's about $1,000.
Yeah.
In this situation, we actually had to pay 2 of those bills. Just because of timing again, we ended up paying $2,000 bills in September. So there's $2,000 of that loss is from hiring. Where in October, we're not going to have any hiring expense. I don't think we had any in August. Probably nothing in July.
Right.
It's just, again, it's kind of timing of things. So you've got that. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this and something we can talk about too is, and this is another reason September's not the greatest, is because anytime you have a truck that's running, creating revenue, and then all of a sudden like a driver leaves and you don't get it filled right away, you lose that revenue stream for that truck while there's no driver in it. But then once the driver gets back in the truck, the expenses, the driver payroll, the fuel and everything, that starts immediately. But you're not going to start, the revenue's trailing that. And so that's another one of the problems with September is that we, had a couple drivers start either right at the beginning of September or kind of through the middle of it. And you've got all these extra expenses, but not too much revenue.
Right. You're paying them for the work they did today, but you're not billing the client that you hauled for immediately, and they're not going to pay for 30 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. Shoot. Yeah. All signs point to a good October, Chris.
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right. I'm talking myself up here.
Good.
Right.
Working that positive. Tease. Keep working that tease.
That's right. I'm the apprentice talking to the master. I really want to joke about pasties right now, and I feel like maybe that would be a mistake.
Probably not.
Okay. All right. Any other P&L highlights?
Yeah, there a couple more. One of them, if you remember, we talked about this on the last P&L. We got audited with our work comp and ended up owing almost I think it was about $10,000, $9,000. And they let us split that up over 3 payments. The first payment came out in August. One's coming out in September, and one more to go in October. So the $2,900 of that was from that work comp audit.
Okay.
And I'm going to kind of combine these two. Maintenance and repairs. Maintenance and repairs were by far the biggest we've ever seen.
Really?
Combined, it was like $32,000.
$32,000 for maintenance and repairs. Didn't you just get done doing a huge round of tires?
We did, and there were still some more tires, and we're to the point where timing wise, when we were buying 2 years ago, we brought on 3 or 4 trucks almost all at the same time.
Yeah,
all those tires are getting replaced almost all at the same time.
Yeah,
and that's 18 wheelers. That's a lot of tires.
A lot of freaking tires.
Yeah, tires aren't cheap.
Can I? Chris, do you mind if I peel back the curtain?
Please.
We're going to break the fourth wall here and tell our listeners that if you don't think you're smart enough or accomplished enough to start your own business, run your own trucking company, grow it into a small fleet, potentially a large fleet, just know that under the category of maintenance, tires, and brakes, Chris has spelled brakes, B-R-E-A-K-S. He's human, ladies and gentlemen.
I think I've said this before. My mother's biggest disappointment in me
spelling is
my inability to spell. She's a school teacher, and so that was always important to her. Yeah. And that wasn't good. Do you want to hear a funny story about me and spelling?
I'm ready. Can we all just appreciate that sentence for a moment? A funny story about Chris and spelling.
I've got 2.
Okay.
When I was working at Flying J, for some reason I can't even remember why, I brought in bagels for everybody.
Sure, as you do.
And I type out an email to my group and say, "Hey, I brought some bagels. They're in the break room. Come and help yourself." Well, I had spelled bagels. Beagles.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So before memes were a thing, all these memes pop up about beagles and people eating beagles. Yeah, come eat your beagles. So
you slather it with cream cheese, right?
Yeah. So there was a bunch of that. The other funny spelling story is this was when I was probably 19 or 20, 21, early 20s, before I was married. My mom was a school teacher, and I was kind of between jobs, going to college, and there was a student in one of her friends' classes that had gotten violent. This is I think it was 2nd grade.
Oh yeah.
And so they hired me for 2 weeks. It was the last 2 weeks of school to come and sit with the kid and make sure he didn't do anything.
How old were you?
20, 21, somewhere around there. And they did a spelling test while I was there. And so
oh no.
I did the 2nd grade spelling test.
You failed it. You failed it.
I didn't fail it, but I did not get the high in the class. We'll put it that way.
Some little girl in the corner is just who is this joker?
Probably more than one some little girl.
Okay. Well, enough spelling stories. I guess I could listen to those for a while. We talked about maintenance and repairs. Anything else from that category you want to bring out?
I think well, what some of the repairs were. Truck number 2, which is our oldest truck, we had a lot go on with it. We had to, excuse me, we had to do a bunch of suspension repairs, new springs, APU repair on it, a new fuel pump, some batteries, battery support, wheel seals. And then on some other trucks, we had to do some brakes. Yeah. So it was just, there was a lot, brakes, tires.
Yeah. Okay.
Lunch breaks.
Sure. All right, Chris. So those are some of the highlights from the numbers. We'll see next month if things,
which
as promised,
probably is going to be the next episode.
Oh,
because
we had to catch up.
Yeah, we had to catch up with P&L. So there's a pretty good chance that the next episode will be October's numbers.
Okay. All right. Well, you've been warned. Okay, people who look forward to the non-financials episodes. I don't know who you are, but yeah, okay. Next one might be financials again, but that's fine. Like I said, we're falling behind if we're recording the previous month's financials on the last day of this month. Yeah, so
this is definitely overdue.
All right, Chris. The other thing that we wanted to talk about today was direct shippers. Is that right? Yeah.
No, we covered it a little bit.
We did cover that. All right. That's right. We did. So I'm just going to cut that. Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, I think that just about does it for our episode today. Anything else you feel like you need to
just stay tuned for October. I'm excited about it.
Good. All right. Good. Me too. Thanks for listening, everybody. Don't forget to go to haulinassetsllc.com and motorcarrierhq.com. Follow us on Facebook because in the last episode, I promised Chris I would send pictures of me and Randy Andy, the truck driver in the 80s in Missouri, who was from Germany, who I met while I was out there. I finally remembered to send those pictures out, so maybe we can get those posted and you can all revel in my German adventures. So
awesome.
Follow us on Facebook and visit those sites. Let us know if you have any questions, anything you want us to address on this podcast. We love hearing from you. And a lot of times what happens is a certain topic or question will reach a critical mass and we go, okay, yeah, we probably better address that. So if one person says, hey, I want to hear about this, well, that's good data. That's good for us to know. If 10 people say, hey, I need to hear more about this subject, well, we're going to do it. So make your voice heard in any of those places. All right, Chris, have a good one, and I will see you in a couple weeks.
I'll see you then.
Welcome, That's good. You know what? I blame.
Is that a balk? Is that like the?
That's you get to go around and do one lap around the studio.
There you go.